while while putting the gasket here, make sure that this mating surface is completely clean and free of any old gasket material. Now there are a bunch of people who don't use this gasket in between the crankcases. They will just use this gasket maker and seal the crankcases. Originally, you are supposed to use a sealant called Yamaha Bond, but that sealant is never available at any spare parts shop. So what I would like to do is I like to use this gasket and also this gasket maker. This gasket maker I will apply on the other half of the crankcase, so that I am doubly sure that oil from the gearbox is not leaking and also not leaking into the combustion chamber. So now I will use this silicone gasket maker onto the other half of the crankcase, and then we can seal both the crankcases. Tight the bolts in the crisscross pattern. Tight all these screws with the impact driver. So if you see this gear, there is one edge which is beveled and one edge is not. So this gear goes like this, so the beveled edge is on the top. We will tighten this nut later. While installing the kick shaft, this stopper rests here and this spring goes in here. Also one thing, install this spring here at this point only, because when you install the clutch you won't be able to turn the spring from here because the clutch will be in the way. So before installing the clutch, install the kick shaft and install the spring. So these are the new friction plates. In one box of this you will get only 5 friction plates, but in the clutch pack there are 6 friction plates, so you have to buy one separately. So first there goes a friction plate. There will be a side on which there will be some letters and number inscribed. That side should be up. This is the clutch plate. Also on the clutch plate there will be one side where these teeth are rounded, and on the other side these teeth are not rounded. Here you can see this is rounded, this is not. So this should be up. tight these bolts fully, insert a 1 rupee coin in between the crankshaft gear and the clutch gear. Now to tighten this crankshaft nut, we need to lock the crankshaft. For that, I have inserted a T here. Now we will install this neutral stopper ball and the spring here. For that we have to remove this bolt. So before assembling the piston, cover the crankcase with a cloth. This is precautionary so that nothing will fall inside the crankcase, because अगर कुछ भी इसके अंदर चले जाता है while assembling तो हमें वापस पूरा क्रैंककेस खोलना पड़ेगा उसे निकालने के लिए. To remove the piston rings, just expand this. निकल आएंगे. So these are the new piston rings. So there are two piston rings. Both the rings are identical, and you can put any ring on the top and other in the bottom. But if you look at the rings closely, there are these two small slots made on the either side of the piston rings. The side where the slots are is the top side. So this is the top side and this is the bottom side. So while installing the rings on the piston, the ring will go like this. The second purpose of this slot is to properly locate the rings on the piston that I will show you in a moment. Before installing the rings, we will lubricate all the rings, the piston and the connecting rod. I am using a 2T oil to lubricate this and not the engine oil. This is the small end bearing. So while installing the piston, remember that this arrow on the piston should be on the exhaust side, that is on the front side of the vehicle. So the piston will go like this. Now we will install this circlip. Now we will install the piston rings. The piston rings have to be aligned on the piston as per the marking given. So this is the marking for the top ring, this, and for the bottom ring, this is the marking. So the piston rings will go like this so that they will align with the small pin that is provided here. While installing the rings, don't expand the rings too much, that will damage them. You have to slightly expand them to get them on. Now you can see that these two slots made on the rings will fit in the small pin provided in the piston. That pin will prevent the rings from rotating all around when the piston is working. Same thing for the top ring. Just slightly expand this. Okay. Now that the piston rings are installed, we can go ahead and install the block. But while doing that, you have to remember two things. First is you have to compress the rings so that the block can fit in. And the second most important thing is, while you compressing and installing the block, you have to make sure that the ring does not shift from its alignment. This is the gasket kit. Tight these bolts in a crisscross pattern. So we'll first tight this, then this, then this, then this.